Hello, once more. Um, it's me again. No titles. You can see the one right above my head, so you know what my name is supposed to be, even though that is not my birth name. And I should speak to that at least a little bit. I think I'll get to that after like my intended topic, because some people have wanted to know more about like the alias and what it means. And the short answer is like both of these names, Athanasius and Wallachian, both correspond etymologically to historical markers at which those names became popular. My actual name's Anthony and Wallace. And so I'm a big etymology nerd. And for those who don't know what etymology is, because it is one of those big Latin dead language words, it is the study of the history of the evolution of language from one form to another. So root terms going all the way back to antiquity and so on. Hello, hello, hello. I like bread. I've got legs. Have you got legs? Right, I don't know. Is everyone wearing pants? It's not important. Like in my mind, it's important because I don't want to imagine you all two of you not wearing pants. So anyway, I changed that name for a couple reasons. One, because I wanted to spur some nerdy conversations with other etymologists, and two, because I work in a pretty relaxed but also a technically very sensitive position and have some potentially snoopy coworkers who are easily dissuaded from whatever I have to say by doing a simple search in Facebook to see, if I'm talking about the company. And if I change my name just a little bit, then it's really hard for them to be found, for me to be found. So, and that's important for me. Hello, Tara. Oh, Miss Tara. So nice that you could join me here. In this place where I'm literally just like talking to my own face, and everything else that you say, I get to make up in my head. So right now, we are all talking in dodgy British accents. You have no say over it because it's all happening in my head, and everything that you type is automatically going to be translated in that way. So enjoy the chaos and the feeling of loss of control. So that explained, and hopefully with that explained, anyone who asks, I can just now point them to this video so that they can understand rather than having to type that whole thing out again. And that's kind of the point of doing a journal, right? It's just putting down stray thoughts and then having access to it later to see like how you were expressing it at that time. So in my first foray into the daily journal landscape, the only real request that I had come in was someone wanted to know, or at least have me start explaining, like, what is the journey that got me to this point? And in her particular context, I think she was looking at the whole, like, mystery bank account, treasury, gold option account that shouldn't exist but is in my name with my social security as the account number, that I've been, unraveling that mystery. Again, I'm kind of putting that whole thing on the back burner, but I will tell the story soon because it is an interesting story and a story that's not solved yet. So, but in terms of the journey that gets me here to where I am today, I really had to think about that. What does that mean? And so I was like, okay, well, if I want to tell how I found out this account, then I have to talk about this part of my life, and that part of my life is not going to make sense unless I talk about that part of my life. And eventually I got all the way back to the womb, and I found myself kind of narrating, like, at week 1, there was nothing, but by the 3rd month, I began to experience colors and sort of a fuzziness that sounded like people talking about Game of Thrones, but through Jello. And I realized that wouldn't be very interesting for very long. So I decided, as a writer, I would, and as someone who wants to translate my experiences into a script, a television series, and express it through those characters, I decided to start with an outline of my life, kind of a preview, a foreshadowing of where I'm going, because I'm not going to give my whole fucking life story in one go, right? Like, you'll all be asleep, which is fine, because you can go back and watch it anytime. That's the beauty of a fifth dimensional journal like this. So I would divide my life just off the top of my head, and I, as the writer, am free to add any categories that are currently lacking, because this is just a brainstorming session, let's say. Born into a well-known but little experienced branch of Christianity called Jehovah's Witnesses, which has its own elements of interest. I'm very fascinated by all religions, and I would say that one that I was born into was a one-time only ability to experience a belief system from the inside and then learn about the outside of it. Then probably my artist years, which would also coincide with public schooling, losing my religion, getting into martial arts as a new system of spirituality, rising through those ranks, getting my own school, my injury, which then led me to my career in Hollywood, and which dovetails into my illness, and then subsequent spiritual awakening, which pretty much all just kind of dovetails into the whole banking industry. So I think the best place to start, if you follow the George Lucas philosophy, is in the middle with the martial arts connection. And again, like a big part of that was that it became my surrogate replacement for religion as I began to examine my religion from the outside in and tried to see how it matched up against all these other mythologies that I had studied all my life. And there was a big period of depression that happened. I was, away from my family for the first time. I had explored or been in the religion all my life, gone to every meeting that I could get to, religious conventions, gone door to door, all that kind of stuff. And when I moved north to go to college, I found myself studying with strangers who had never met me, and when they treated me as if I was completely oblivious to any of this, even though I had read it over and over and over and over again, heard the talks over and over again, been up in front of an audience over and over and over again, which was all great training for me to eventually come out of my shell and be able to be more extroverted and be in front of an audience comfortably. So if you can put all that together, I'm away from home for the first time, away from my family. I'm losing my entire belief system, completely reevaluating my life, feeling like I've wasted my entire life by following these rules that didn't really seem to apply to being human anymore. I'd always been interested in martial arts, and martial arts have been a huge inspiration for me in the artistic circles. And it was something that was kind of forbidden for me as a religious child and teen, because we were taught, to beat our swords into plowshares. And my parents definitely extended that into any kind of learning how to fight. And for me, it was more of the expression, the ability to move with your body, that I then probably subconsciously at the time saw as a means of letting other people know, like, don't mess with me, because I was also a bullied kid throughout public school. I was telling someone earlier today that I was often used as a punching bag. I was not that much smaller then than I am now. Probably right on the 5-foot cusp, and bigger for my age during middle school, and also just way bigger than a lot of guys at that age, especially 6th grade. And some of the smaller kids found out that if they hit me, I wouldn't hit them back. I'd put my hands up or whatever, maybe, but I would just take it until someone else would rescue me or something. And so those memories of that, informed, like, I wanted to be able to protect myself. So upon losing my religion, like, and coming home dejected from college in such a depressive state that I couldn't go to my classes. I couldn't get up out of bed. I couldn't do anything with my life. I was on my third antidepressant, like Zoloft, Paxil, and the most famous one, Prozac, which was the most stable. I would say the other ones were just horrible, horrible side effects. And of course, I did not want to stay on those pills and spend the rest of my life like fighting side effects or just being enslaved to anything. And my parents always owned a janitorial company, and I had been a janitor with them since middle school. And one day, my dad came in, a day when I was not able to roll out of bed, and he told me that he had been working on a movie with one of the local martial arts school owners, and he had been offered through that friendship, through that connection, the opportunity to train in exchange for janitorial work. And he didn't want to take it because he didn't feel comfortable. But my dad had always told me, like, when you turn 18, you are your own man, and we're not here to control you or tell you what to do. We're here to give you advice. But at 18, you do your own thing. And I'd always, thought that was bullshit when I was a kid. But lo and behold, when I turned 18, and this was the validation of that, is my dad coming to me, something he'd forbidden me my whole life as a kid, and was like, here, why don't you take this opportunity? Because I know that you're passionate about this thing. And so I did. And, that's how I got in the door. I trained, and my dad lent me tools, vacuum and trash bags, things like that. And I would come in and clean the school in the middle of the night. In exchange, I would get lessons. And very early on, my martial arts instructors, like the whole instruction team, identified me for my potential as an instructor myself, and were kind of like trying to feed that idea into me and get me like inspired about the idea of someday becoming an instructor, possibly having my own school. And at first I didn't buy into it. I'm like, I'm just a fucking white belt. Why would you think that would be a thing? And they were also encouraging me to, do tournaments. And, that was also like, why would I do that? I'm a white belt. Like, what am I going to do my form, my white belt form, up against, people who've been doing this for like 6 months, and are that much farther ahead. And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what you're going to do. And, I kind of balked. And one of my instructors is just like, dude, you just need to go. Look, if you show up, first of all, I'm ordering you to show up. Secondly, if you show up, I will pay for it. Just go out there, do the best form you can, and see what happens. And I did. I went up against, I was the only white belt in my field, first tournament ever. And I did my form the best I could, and I absolutely destroyed the competition. Walked away with first place, no question. And from then on, I was infected with a bug. I could not stop going to tournaments because I found out like every trophy you earned earns you points towards an invitation to national championships. And I went on to get first place in, I think, every tournament, every class that I competed in up until green belt. And then after that, still did really well in forms, not so much in sparring until the black belt division started opening up to me. And then in 2000, made it to national championships. By then I had become an instructor, was up in front of a class all the time, knew what I was talking about, was looked up to, was admired, had a reason to get up out of bed, had a built-in exercise program, had a social circle with the same interests as me. And by that time, I had completely, with all those inoculations, had dispelled nearly every element of my seasonal depression and had no need whatsoever for any kind of pharmaceuticals. And, started dating. I was a late bloomer. I didn't lose my virginity until I believe age 22. And most of the women I dated early on were through the martial arts school, which is a big no-no. But I mean, it was a natural progression. It was people who were, on the same page with me. And through that, I also, met my wife, had my girls, ended up having becoming an instructor, running camps, running my own tournaments, being co-founder of my own martial arts system, training with one of the most celebrated Black Belt Hall of Famers in history, Bruce Lee's chief rival. I'll get into that story someday. And then at some point we had, I think we had about 100 students, and we were gunning for even more. Very popular school. And I had an injury, blew out an ACL training for my 3rd degree black belt, and still went and did that test even without the surgery on the messed up knee, which messed it up more. By the way, don't do that. And then at that point had to reevaluate how I was going to teach everything I'd learned through this process. And that opened the door to me writing. And very shortly after writing, synchronous things occurred, and I was contacted by people in Hollywood, and ended up within the year taking what had started out as just a simple idea of teaching martial arts principles through character storytelling, not on a soapbox, and then let kids learn it that way. And people really responded to it very fast. And I'll stop there because that's going to, open up a whole another door of what happened after that. And there's so many more details to get into in that phase of my life. But, I think that's good for a first entry on my journey. I haven't checked to see if there's any questions yet. It looks like everyone's just kind of joining and watching, which is totally cool. If you're joining late, feel free to go back to the beginning or ignore or whatever. If you get on here and your first question is why is Tony doing this? I kind of state that at the beginning of each of these. It's basically a therapeutic outlet for me. It's almost like a counseling session with myself, and I want to invite anyone who is interested to join along. I have a group that is specifically for taboo topics. I'm talking about paranormal activity. I'm talking about sex, sexuality. I'm talking about recreational medical drug use. I'm talking about whatever you want to know about or whatever you want to get off your chest. This is a place to be. It's called the In-Between. It is very chill, very relaxed. I will be getting into those kind of more intense or more interesting topics in there. So if anyone wants to be a part of that, you can let me know in the thread or just shoot me a PM, whatever is most comfortable, and I will add you, no problem. And then, I'll keep more not G-rated, because I'm going to say fuck a lot. And I think kids need to be more exposed to that. It's German anyway, so really they're just kind of, strengthening their international vocabulary. So anyway, that's today's story. The journey, which was requested last time, mainly about my experience, kind of an overview of my experience as a martial artist and how that affected my life. Tomorrow I'll get into how that opened the door into my Hollywood career, and then the crash when my health went downhill and I was dying, and then my spiritual awakening and my self-healing, and then how that brings me here today. So if anyone has any questions, which doesn't look like it, go ahead and shoot them now. Otherwise, I will sign off and say goodbye. Aloha. I will sign off and say aloha. Hello, Tina. Good night, everyone.